call the City of Holbrook-Board of Adjustment meeting to order at 5:30 p.m., May 11th, 2023 at 5:36 p.m. For roll call, everybody is in attendance except for Vice Mayor Payne, who is excused. We have a full house for our agenda tonight, and we appreciate you coming out. Item number 3 on here is new business for a public hearing. This is a public hearing for an appeal of a Planning and Zoning Commission denial of a conditional use permit, change point request to convert Howard Johnson 2608 East Navajo Boulevard to residential care services. So at this time, we will go ahead and open the public meeting at 5:36 p.m. And we do have a list of requests to address the Board of Adjustment. So we are not the City Council right now. We are actually the Board of Adjustment, as a reminder. So with that, we will still follow the same rules that we follow for any, when you're addressing the City Council. For an agenda item, it'll be 5 minutes. It'll be your timer. We will let you know when your time is up. So we do ask that if this could be an emotional debate, if you don't agree with somebody, we ask that you keep any audible sighs or gasp or any, emotion to yourself at this point. So with that, we will go ahead and call our first person to the pulpit. If you'll come up, if you'll give us your name and the city you live, and at that point you'll have 5 minutes to start. And so we will go ahead and start with Chairman Mike Sample. He is our chairman of our Planning and Zoning Boards.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and the public present. On April 6th, a meeting was held by the Holbrook Planning and Zoning Commission regarding a conditional use permit submitted by Change Point Integrated Health to convert the Howard Johnson facility located at 2604 Navajo Boulevard into a residential care / homeless shelter facility. The property is currently zoned C2, which is general commercial, which a residential care facility or homeless shelter is not allowed for principal use. A residential care services is listed under the conditional use requirements. A presentation was made by Change Point and a brochure was provided. Public input was taken, both positive and some opposed to it. And then after discussion by the public and the Planning and Zoning Commission, a vote was taken and the conditional use permit was denied by the Planning and Zoning. I know it was submitted by Christine Cazares, I think was the name, to convert Howard Johnson to a residential care facility on their application, and they did submit a brochure. It's called Turning Point, a Change Point Homeless Housing Project for the Howard Johnson Hotel. And so that's, it was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
All right, thank you very much. All right. With that, we will turn the time over to Jeff Oakes.
Madam Mayor Smith, council members, appreciate your time. My name is Jeff Oakes. I'm the CEO at Change Point, and I'm here to present some information. And just to make it clear, it's not a residential facility. What we're proposing is actually a transitional housing. So it's a housing project that's available for individuals that need housing. I do have some additional brochures. There's I think 6 of them here. We can take one and pass it on. I'll go quickly through this. So we know the address. Basically, this is some funding that we received from the Arizona Department of Housing, and it's for the purpose of serving individuals that are homeless. And this includes both individuals as well as families. Our objective, I think on page 2, is to reduce the demand of public safety officers. The idea also is that if public safety officers are finding individuals, they can drop them off and we'll assist them in providing some housing or providing services that they might need. It's also to provide support and resources to individuals and families in the community, help individuals transition to become self-reliant, self-sustaining, and productive citizens in the community. What we're looking at doing is converting to 35 apartments and making that available to the community here in Holbrook. I'm gonna jump forward here a little bit. Eligible are families having difficulty obtaining and maintaining a safe living environment due to COVID. This funding was tied directly to COVID several years ago. And they funded a lot of the metro areas, and they've earmarked some funding for rural Arizona, and they're working with us trying to support some of the rural Arizona. So part of the process is we do an assessment for chronic homeless and assessment, what they call SPDAT, which is the Service Prioritization Decision Assistant Tool. There's an approval process to be placed in these housing projects or residential facilities, and we've even offered the city to have a seat at the table to be part of the decision making of who comes in and who doesn't come in. There is an agreement with the individuals that live there. For example, no pets. They have to be no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol on the property. So we do have the ability to evict in the event that they're not complying with the rules of the facility. So as far as some of the concerns that were expressed, we met with city police chief Nate Christensen, and initially he had some concerns. We were able to resolve the concerns, and actually at the planning and zoning, he was in support of this because it potentially would help law enforcement reduce their time having to transport people to lakeside area where they could actually bring and drop them off at our facility, and we would do that transport ourselves for law enforcement. Some of the services that we're looking at trying to provide at the facility, including applying for access, applying for Social Security, nutrition assistance, GED classes. We're working with NPC right now on a behavioral health tech program, and the idea is that we even do internships for individuals here in Holbrook to promote their education and more jobs. We do anticipate that it would provide a number of additional jobs here in Holbrook. Change Point has been around since 1966, so we have over 50 years of experience in Navajo County. We have a budget of $24 million a year, and about $1.5 million are for staffing right here in Holbrook, and we do anticipate that to increase. So, and just to give you a couple statistics of the idea of the individuals we'll be serving, this is from the State of Homelessness from Arizona Department of Economic Security from December 31st of 2022. So since 2020, there has been an increase of nearly 25% in homelessness in the state of Arizona. And to give you a sense of the individual making minimum wage, they would have to work 60 hours just to afford a one-bedroom rental home at the fair market rate. And the statistics here go on and mention the greatest age, or the greatest population that is homeless are actually seniors, 55 or older. And you know, I talked to a lot of rental companies up here in Navajo County, and I'm sure, as you guys know, all we're seeing is increase in rents. But so we would love to provide this as a service to the community.
Thank you, and I assume you'll stick around in case we have any follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
Is that okay? All right, thank you very much. All right. With that, we'll let, oh, go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I get up here thinking what I'm gonna say and then I forget. One of the reasons we opposed it as well was because there was local business owners that adjacent to that area that came in and voiced their opinion as well. And then also the county attorney's office and another attorney, Ms. Dawn Wilson, was here stating that it would also be used for people released from drug court to be housed at that place. So I wanted to mention that as well.
All right, thank you for that. All right. Mr. Byron Lewis, do you want to finish Mr. Oak's presentation for him? So.
Thank you. My name is Byron Lewis, and I was born and bred a roadrunner here in Holbrook. I live in Snowflake now. And my family helped build the wigwams here. I was hung from wigwam number 9 for the first 2 years of my life. When my wife found that out, she said that explained an awful lot of things. So it's good to be home. I also serve as the chairman for Change Point, and I'd like to share with you some reasons why I think this would be a very good move for Holbrook, which is very dear and near to my heart. In Snowflake right now, I served on our city council for several years. I currently serve as the mayor, and one of the things I do is I ride with our police every month, usually when my wife is having bunco night, because it's safer to be with the police then than it is to be at home on bunco. And as I've ridden with the police, a couple of the experiences we've had to deal with homeless. We've had to deal with mentally ill folk. I can't imagine what the increase would be here on the I-40 corridor. And what we have to do then is, when there's a situation like that, our police officers have to transport them to the mental health facility in Sherwood, which leaves us down an officer. I believe that that impacts the safety of our community. That's a problem with this facility coming in that is alleviated because they will provide the transport. In addition, they'll be providing a service that not too many communities have, and that is that they'll have a 24/7-hour mental health specialist there that can help make those decisions. Talking with police and with the county attorney, it's a boon to them to be able to drop off individuals that have these type of challenges and then not have to worry about transport and still continue the parole that they have to help keep the citizens here safe. Another thing to consider is the dollars that are assigned to these grants are designated for rural Arizona. If they don't go here, they're going to go somewhere else. And that money will be spent outside of your community. $1.5 million in salaries now, with a significant increase there, is something I think that is very, very important and would benefit the community as a whole. Now, questions of safety have arisen, so please consider this. Would you rather have individuals that are homeless roaming your streets, wandering around, or would you rather have a place where they can go, and if they need additional services, they can be transported at no expense to the city, and that they can receive the training and the mental health guidance that they would need there? Those are significant things to consider. I think they make a community safer. I wish we had something like this in my community. In fact, the officers that I ride with express that concern all the time. We'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. I understand being on the I-40 corridor and growing up here, I understand the challenge, and I understand the reservations. This isn't a place where it's going to be a magnet to draw people. It's going to be a place where folks can get help and be funneled to where the resources are available. Another advantage that you're going to have, I understand why some of the hotels might be upset. This is going to be something that will cause them to raise their game, because these places will be inspected. They are required to meet certifications. They have eviction requirements that they have to meet that other establishments don't. And I think that could help raise the game. I hope I have a little time left. I didn't want to use it all. I know your time's valuable.
Good, thank you. All right. We'll continue on to Ms. Robin Gonzalez.
I wasn't sure I wanted to speak tonight, Council. I have spoke to quite a few people trying to get the feel for what's going on, and I still have a lot of questions, and even what we just now heard, I still even have more questions. Are these only going to be for residents of Holbrook, or will these people be brought in from all of Navajo County? And they said they could be evicted. Well, what does that mean? They're put back on the street? I just don't understand what is the demand that Holbrook truly has for this. And I think basically with the questions I have, and I'm sure you guys have the questions, and I don't understand if the planning and zoning already had reason to say no. I don't understand why this always falls back on council, but I'm sure there's some reason for it. But I don't understand why this is a council decision or being appealed, and why the no wasn't just no. I think a lot of it also, the concern is the area that it's in. That is our top area right now in Holbrook for the motels that we do have. And he stated that people won't want to stay, or that they'll have to up their game because they're there. What about people that know that's a mental facility right next door and they don't wanna stay here because they don't feel comfortable staying by a mental facility? Is this really going to help Holbrook, and is this the direction we're taking the town? That's my concern. I was one of the few that was at the last 2 meetings, and even though it may have nothing to do with it, I saw the mayor beg and plead for everyone to slow down and let's get things in a row and decide what direction are we taking the city. And I hate to pass this through and to hurry up with just another one when just last meeting you passed the, how many houses was it gonna be? For the veteran homeless. Not to mention the 10 or so that have snuck in under the wire that are now housing. Are we gonna have any motels left? And if we had a general plan and we do want to move in the direction of tourism, are we making ourselves a tourist town, or what are we doing? And that's where I'm confused. And that's why I plead that you just slow down and start getting things more in order and looking at all options before we just keep rushing through with this, because these decisions are things we're not gonna be able to ever go back on. Once it's there, it's there. The last decision that you made, you said you give the people 4 years to bring it up to standards. 4 years. You know, I just don't understand what we're doing as a city or what the council's mindset is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miss Lynn Hatton.
It's Miss.
Mr. Sorry. I was talking to your wife earlier. I'm still trying to get her to come up. So.
She would, I'm in Manhattan, and I've had a business for years, general contractor, plumbing contractor, and here at Holbrook, but I never could do business in this town. I could go out on the res, I could go to Springerville, show, because you guys never enforced the codes, the rules, let anybody put anything in, plumbers, get natural gas, which they're not supposed to except a licensed person. And that's, until you guys follow the code. You don't follow the code, it'll never change. And, that's the reason, like I say, that's why I never did any work in town. And, you got property up there between, you know, up by the Chevron, you got empty vacant lots in there. Now you tell me, if you're gonna come in and you know that that's there, are you gonna spend $1 million, put up a big new hotel? You're not. And I don't know if you guys remember when Steve used to run the Best Western. I deal with him a lot, and he told me that he'd see these guys, they'd come in, they would get a room for a week or 2 weeks, and he says, he'd see them driving around town. He said, once in a while I'd see them in the back of the meetings here, and they'd be checking out, and they'd tell him, you know, we were gonna put some money in there, but the way your codes, your zonings, we're not going to. So like I say, you put that in, you're not gonna get somebody to build something nice up there. I'm telling you, as a contractor, I've dealt with this stuff, they're not gonna spend the money. They're gonna go down the road somewhere else. Because why do you wanna spend that kind of money when you might have something that might pull you down? That's about all I gotta say, and I think there's a lot of other ways you can, you know, we're a tourist town. You gotta entice to get people off the freeway, and I've said it since I came here, put you up the biggest damn sign you can put up, rodeo, fiestas. Cause I contracted a lot of work out in Clinton, Weatherford, out through the Panhandle of Texas, and I asked them, they were Route 66, Herb wanted to quit, and I asked them, I said, what's the best thing that ever happened to you to get people in here? They said, we put up the biggest sign in the world and said what we had going on. And that's what they need here.
Okay, I'm sorry you're out of time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Right, David Newland.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Manager. My name is David Newland. I live in Holbrook. I've had the opportunity over the last 15 years raising grandchildren to avail myself and my wife of many services at Change Point. I would say that I have an excellent working knowledge of the organization, the institution, their staff difficulties, problems, and frustrations. I support their appeal 100%. We live in a situation where many are not even aware of the 16-unit facility directly to our west, which met with a great deal of discussion and opposition a number of years ago. And I doubt that anybody even recognizes that it's there for the most part, because it's well run, it's well organized, there's not any problems associated with it. Now that is a higher level of individuals with specific needs of living, and it's not a temporary location. But I'd also point out that we have the Bread of Life mission, which is a well-run organization but caters primarily to women and is always overcrowded, or at least most of the time that I've been aware of it is overcrowded. It needs some relief. That's a charitable nonprofit organization. ChangePoint has been given a substantial amount of funding for specific purposes to help the homeless situation. Flagstaff has just bought the Motel 6 in the Lucky Lane area to change that into homeless housing, a 4-story motel right in the middle of a dozen other very important motels in that part of the area. I doubt seriously that they haven't studied that thoroughly. I can see no impact that that facility would have on the difficulties here, except to reduce the number of people on the streets, to make it easier for our government agencies and facilities to deal with them and to treat them, and to have those individuals in a supervised situation. As far as release from the drug court, my goodness gracious, they're required to take drug tests regularly, some on a daily basis. And that's the only basis in which they could stay in this facility. I would point out that we have community bridges over in the old NPC campus that runs a very low profile organization that was built and put there a number of years ago specifically to deal with public intoxication. We have these facilities in Holbrook. I don't think there's been any significant negative effects, and I think they've all been very positive. And I see this facility as a positive one as well. The county attorney and staff from the Superior Courts appeared at the original meeting supporting this 100%. The police chief indicated that he was initially not in favor of the project, but had changed his mind after discussion with ChangePoint. I think there's some very good reasons why, both practical, but also moral and ethical. We are told that we should be caring for the poor and homeless, and this is a way to do it. I hope that you will consider those things while you're making a decision on this appeal, which I support 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Miss Evelyn Merez.
I have a copy of my talking points for you to look at. I'm short, so I have to hold this down. My name is Evelyn Perez. I'm a lifelong resident of Holbrook, just like many of you are, and many people in our city that are not here tonight. My thoughts are for us to concentrate on the positive things that Holbrook already has to offer. Fortunately, we don't have much homeless or mental health citizens in our area. And we already assist nearby communities with this issue. Just like David pointed out, we have so many places, and we already do our part, I think, to assist in that issue. So I will start by saying Winslow started with a song. We have so much more. We can start small, start free, send a message. The petrified forest, that's what we call it. But we tend to forget that this is a national park right in our backyard. As a past member of the Petrified Forest Museum Association, I can tell you that they are constantly working to upgrade the park and offer, lots of things. New exhibits, tours, I'm sure a lot of you know about that. Let's collaborate with them. You promote us, we promote you. Did you know that we are the only 90-degree angle turn on Route 66? The only one. Most people don't even know that. Let's expand on that. Contact ADOT. Tell them we desperately need the entire route running through Holbrook repaved. So what if we only have 2 lanes for a bit? It'll be like old times. We are the county seat. Navajo County Fairgrounds has an event almost every single weekend. Let's work with county administration. Ask if they will repave the road on Hopi towards the fairgrounds and provide professional signage to promote these events. The County Historical Museum. It's been featured lots of times. Arizona Highways, PBS, to name a few. Again, we could request the county to repave that road, make it so much easier to get there. I know our city doesn't have much money, but there are a few things I think that may be doable. Repaint our iconic water tank with inviting colors and a catchy tagline. Travelers see that on I-40, and it reminds them that they are in Holbrook. Let's make it a nice place that they would want to stop. Repave the road to Hunt Park and the Blacktop. Many people enjoy our park, but the road is hard, it's rough through there. These are just a few of the ideas I thought might help to enhance our city. I have many, many more, but I don't want to go on and on. Let's just remember, Winslow started with a song. We have so much more to offer. Thank you for
Evelyn,
listening.
were you for the transitional housing or,
Oh, I'm against it.
oh, you're against it?
Like I said, I think we already do our part as a city and as a community for other nearby communities that help these individuals. And, as far as the grant money, well, this was COVID money. It's not gonna last forever. I mean, I dealt with grants in my past, and unfortunately, they're here and then they're gone. Administration changes
So
and
that's
it's
your time
over.
now. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much. So, all right, we do have a few more still. As many of you know, we do have a conflict tonight with the schools tonight with an event, so we do have people that weren't able to attend. So I had 3 different people email me this afternoon asking if they still wanted to make sure they got their statement out. I can get you a copy of them. I've got 2 right here, and I've got one that I didn't print yet.
I'd like a copy.
Yep, I can do that. So, the first one is from Connie McPherson. It said 40-year resident of Holbrook, 30 years in the Holbrook Unified School District. And Adam, if you keep me in line as well. Thank you. Said, Mayor, please share this with the City Council the following. It has come to my attention that Change Point is requesting to rezone Howard Johnson from a business to residential housing. At this time, they have the residential hall next to the junior high and another motel downtown where they provide services to their patients. As for the disabled vets, Sholo has an established program that allows vets to rent cabins in exchange for working in their store. At this time, there are several cabins still available and can be used for those in Holbrook. Currently, we have 10 hotels that provide low housing to individuals within our community. They are no longer generating daily revenue. This leaves 11 hotels to service the tourists, which do provide revenue and promote our local restaurants and small stores. Of those 11, only 7 are at a 3-star review, leaving our tourists with little choice. The impact to Holbrook would be set back. First, those who enter our town from the east end would encounter a residential complex, which is to say that the Howard Johnson, which now is very appealing in appearance, over time the wear and tear would be apparent and resemble the hotel downtown. Secondly, this would decrease the city's opportunity for daily revenue, i.e. local businesses, restaurants, and so much more. It would also decrease the surrounding property tax, which would impact our local businesses. Recently, there was a Facebook post by Robin Gonzalez encouraging the attendance to the special session. Angela Flores was actively responding to several community members, such as myself. According to Angela, this would be beneficial to new teachers and nurses. As for teachers, I have served as a principal for the Holbrook Unified School District, and I can assure you that no teacher would consider this as a possible prospect for housing. The environment would not allow a young teacher to feel safe living with Change Point residents. As many of you know, we do not have a doctor's office or a hospital that needs to be staffed. The need for nurses are limited. Since the Facebook posting, Angela has deleted all of her posts. In regards to our community, this proposal only benefits those who need services from Change Point. It would cause undue burden with our school district. Typically, those who are in need of Change Point have specific physical or mental issues that need to be addressed. Medically, we are limited. Our schools are already stressed with behavioral issues, which takes away from the quality of education. Our law enforcement is stretched thin as it is. The only benefactors to changing the Howard Johnson to a residential facility is to Change Point and their clients. This would set Holbrook back. We need to promote new businesses that will generate revenue. It is for this reason that I recommend the City Council to vote no. As a reminder, it's the Board of Adjustments tonight.
And that was
Connie McPherson, correct. And then I'll read an email from Amanda Ramos. She says, I am writing to voice my concern of the issue of converting the Howard Johnson to a Johnson Hotel to a residential facility. My main concerns are listed below. 1, do we have the resources available to assist this type of population, including medical care, law enforcement, and mental health? I do know that Change Point is heading this, but are they prepared to accommodate the numbers? I know many facilities are understaffed. We need to accommodate our local community initially before we recruit more people. 2, the code issue. I read in the newspaper the zoning issues and the fact that a hotel is not coded for long-term residential housing. I admire you backing this and support you with your concerns about code enforcement. A hotel is not built nor intended to suit long-term housing. 3, as a lifelong community member, I am very proud and protective of my community. I am concerned about safety. This type of facility could potentially bring in more crime. Have you researched any data? 4, I am not sure that our small town is the best place for this. Perhaps we can brainstorm more ways to support our hometown, such as enforcing codes in place. I really do appreciate the city's initiatives to enforce getting the vehicles off the streets. It was a great start to cleaning up our community. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. And the last one, let me take a drink and I'm trying to slow down. I know I talk fast. This one is from Terry Tafoya. She says, Dear Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, I'm writing this letter to be read since I am unable to attend the meeting tonight in person due to illness. The reason I am writing is to express my opposition in regards to changing another motel in Holbrook to residential homeless housing. I agree that there are people in our community that need help, but do we really want our community to become the hub for homelessness? I do not see homeless people on the street, so I don't understand why we need another facility. Communities nearby are thriving, and we need to look to them to see what they are doing. If you don't think those communities will send their indigent people here knowing we have available housing, you're wrong. They will not want them in their community, so we will just be opening the door for them along with those that get released from the Navajo County Jail. Every year, the school district has to hire new teachers to educate our students, and they need housing available to them. If there's no housing, then no teachers, so our schools struggle. Medical needs will increase with the number of homeless people coming here. We do not have an urgent care facility to help with these needs. Ambulance service and law enforcement needs will also increase. The question is, will we as a community be able to meet those needs? There are so many areas in our community that need attention to make Holbrook look better, and for those of us who call Holbrook home, a place to be proud of. I have a list of concerns and suggestions, but we'll save most for another time. However, my main concern is that there has been talk of moving the county seat to Sholo, which would also move the yearly fair that brings in lots of revenue to Holbrook. I believe that if we don't do something to improve our community, that this will become a reality that would really hurt Holbrook. Our parks are kept nice and are appreciated, but those passing through don't see them. They say they see what is on our main streets, which is pretty bad. I feel that we can keep our parks, but the focus needs to be on our downtown area and make it a place that people want to come back to. Before making this decision, please inform the citizens of Holbrook how moving forward with this will help and benefit our city. I appreciate all of you for serving on the council, but feel that more people would get involved and attend meetings if they had the feeling that their opinions mattered and the council really listened with an open ear. I'm asking that you don't make a quick decision and take the time to listen to citizens and their concerns. Educate them on what good we get with the bad and show how doing this will help Holbrook grow. Thanks for your time, Terry Tafoya. So that is all the emails that I received, and so I believe we have one last request to address the board, and that is from Yvette Johnson with Holbrook EMS.
Madam Mayor and Council, our biggest concern is having the resources here available to be able to provide services with this coming in. There's no hospital here. When they get transported to LCMC, there's no way back for them, so it causes a problem at the hospital as well. There's not enough systems in place to support a facility like this. The jobs available here, we're already short-staffed with the police. We're having a hard time keeping up with the calls that we have. We would need more employees, more equipment. We do not even have that in our budget. And the homeless people that we do transport, there's no payment for that. So we do not get paid. We pulled up our statistics from last year, and Bread of Life Mission had the most calls. Then some of the other hotels that people live in, the Navajo County Detention Center, and then the Change Point Apartments. We've had, with the Change Point Apartments, we've had many unnecessary non-911 calls for cracked hands, a bleeding nose that was not bleeding, dry eyes, and this takes from the resources of our town. While we're transporting these non-emergency calls, then the calls that go out that truly need us, we're not here to be able to provide for them. We have 2 ambulances that we staff, and when a third page goes out, I have to start calling for help for the people to come in. 74% of our employees are not in Holbrook. So providing that would be very difficult for us, and how are we gonna get paid for those calls? Because we don't get paid now. So is there gonna be some kind of contract in place that if we do get called there, that they're gonna pay for the services of these people? And how are they going to manage the other facility if they can't manage departments from calling us over and over for non-emergency calls? That is one of our large concerns. Also, safety comes into play. A lot of homeless shelters do come with drug abuse and violence. And our most important thing is the safety of our employees. But we do not have the resources to transport people for free and have the additional people come in and that the calls would be created. We acknowledge that there's a lot of families in need, but this is the wrong place to do it due to all the limited resources that we have in Holbrook available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Manager Schultz, that was all, correct?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. All right, we appreciate everybody coming out to the public hearing. We will go ahead and close the public hearing portion at 6:15 p.m. And then at this point, it'll be after the discussion of the Board of Adjustments to discuss then, and but the public comments section is closed at this point. That's what that means.
So do you have questions
So,
of different?
and if we do have some questions, then I think it'll be appropriate. If we do ask questions of maybe somebody from Change Point or EMS, things like that, if you'll just keep to your answer to the question at hand. So with that, we will open it for discussion for our council, for our Board of Adjustments. So, Member Dixon.
This question is for Byron, I think, so if you could come up and take the podium, I appreciate that. You and I go way back.
We do. When I helped build the North Country facility here,
Yes.
and we turned that into a sexual assault center so that these victims weren't drug all over the lake, and you
Right.
come in and do the forensic exams.
Right. We have accomplished very much.
Quite a bit.
Byron, you said that, well, first of all, do you have any idea what the homeless population is in Holbrook?
I don't know what the homeless population is per se, but I do know about the need as we talk about other communities that are here in the area. And I know on the I-40 corridor, that has been a significant issue. I hear that from our police as well.
Okay. Do you know what the homeless population of Navajo County is?
I don't.
You mentioned other communities. Which communities are you talking about?
I'm talking about Snowflake, Taylor, I'm talking about Flagstaff, I'm talking about Winslow, Payson.
Okay. Any idea, maybe this may not be a question for you, and I don't see the chief of police here, but how many law enforcement transports HPD has done to Lakeside? And I understand this probably isn't something that you would have knowledge of, but I don't know if Ted can answer that question. Again, the chief is not here. You said, I think I quoted you correctly, I wish I had something like this in my community.
I do.
And I'm hoping that your community, Snowflake, Taylor, correct?
Correct.
Has maybe an option for y'all to research.
We're looking at property, Change Point is looking at property right now in Snowflake to do this.
Okay.
I plan to go before Planning and Zoning and City Council on a similar presentation.
Okay.
But back to your original question, part of the issue about transport is, I don't know how many they've actually been able to identify. And so I think that number could be very misleading in a lot of ways, because I think the number's higher than what will probably be reported.
Okay.
And
What
I
do you
think
mean
that's-
they couldn't identify?
Well, I think that some folks may not be able to get to the resource, or that they're spread so thin right now that there's more people than they would be able to contact. Given a resource like this, I think some of those people could be reached. And in terms of them being out on the street or so, you have an option to make it a safer community by bringing them in or transporting them to where they can get services at a mental health hospital in Show at no cost to the community.
Okay. And what would be the difference between what Change Point does and what the Bread of Life mission does now?
Well, the Bread of Life mission right now doesn't transport, for one, and they're primarily geared towards women. I've had experiences dealing with them, as I know you have, over the years. I think the structure for the rules that go into this, because of some of the grant requirements, are going to be more strict than what they have at Bread of Life. Also, at this facility, they'll have mental health professionals on staff 24/7.
I know, I've done some things at Bread of Life mission, and I see a lot of men there too.
I do. I've seen a lot of them there, but my experience has been a little bit different.
Okay. All right, thank you, Byron.
Member Nilsson, did you have a question for somebody?
Yes, for the gentleman from Change Point, if,
Mr. Oaks? Yeah, if you
Yes.
don't mind.
Sure. if the council didn't approve this, would Change Point leave Holbrook?
More than likely, yes. So we just to make a quick summary, we began this project, I think it was Mike Young. He said, are you gonna do similar to your apartments? We said, yes. He said, okay, everything should be fine. We actually put escrow money down. I think we have close to $150,000 of Change Point money. And then the rest of the funding Arizona Department of Housing is ready to fund the rest of the project. If that doesn't go through, we'll probably look for another location. We're building a 20-unit apartment complex in Sholo for a very similar process. So, and then we're currently looking for another project in Navajo County. So,
Would Change Point consider a different location in Holbrook?
you know, we would. I think the challenge is there's not a place for sale right now. And I don't know if Arizona Department of Housing would be willing to wait, to be honest. Or the seller of the hotel, because it's been delayed now for, I think, a month and a half. And I know he's getting very anxious to close, so. And as far as transports, there's two different types of transports. There's what is called Title 36, which is involuntary admission to a hospital, and statute says law enforcement has to transport. And our goal is to reduce the other types of transports that law enforcement. We have what's called a crisis center up in Lakeside area, and the law enforcement up in that area they bring individuals and drop them off at our facility. So that's our ultimate goal is to provide that transportation from individuals that need that service from Holbrook to the Lakeside area. And just to make it clear, this is, I know in the documents on your agenda, it says residential. This is not a residential facility. It's an housing for homeless or for individuals that need housing for whatever reason. Yes.
And you mentioned more jobs created. Like, how many jobs do you think? Like, what kind of?
So there's several
That
different,
generate,
there's several different types of jobs. What we call behavioral health paraprofessionals, behavioral health technicians, and behavioral health professionals. And so we anticipate primarily behavioral health paraprofessionals and behavioral health technicians to work at that facility. And when we met at the planning and zoning, I offered I'll sit at the table with the city on whatever we can do to resolve the concerns that there are. Including a seat at the table on accepting. The guidelines for this are through August of 2024. After that, we're able to use it as a residential housing, whatever we would like. And like I had said it in the planning and zoning, it could be specific to housing for school teachers or housing for veterans. And we own Change Point 30+ buildings in Navajo County, and we maintain our buildings extremely well. We have maintenance staff that support. We would be completely up to code, unlike the facilities that are currently operating under the same guideline that we're asking. The difference is we're coming forward and asking for permission before we do it. So, like I said, I think some of the concerns that have been voiced will not be a concern. So,
Thank you.
I have some questions with that. You said that there's restrictions and they have to go pretty much apply in order to be accepted into the facility. So say they are accepted, you have individuals who suffer from mental illness who are being seen and under the care of a doctor, and then you have another family of 4 who no longer have housing in the same building. Where does that not pose a risk for this family who's
so obviously,
not the same?
during the screening process, we would ensure that there's no individuals at risk. Say for example, a sex offender. They wouldn't be allowed in this facility.
What I mean is, like you said, Title 36 is an involuntary commitment to a mental health facility. Usually if you're under Title 36, under my prior knowledge, they're usually a danger to themselves and to others, which is why they are involuntarily being committed.
Correct.
And so you're having the same type of population in the same area as a normal family of 4 who's just out of a home at the time.
And this is why there's a committee that reviews, and so if an individual ends up at the hospital as an involuntary and it's upheld by the judge and they're under court order treatment for 1 year, that could be a stipulation for non-acceptance into this program. We have other facilities in Sholo and other areas that we could place them. So we could have a stipulation in the acceptance of this facility that they are not under court treatment.
Okay, so my other question is, driving through town, we don't really, I do not feel like we have a high population of homeless. Most of the time, there's a little bit of a backstory to that, and we are, oh, I just lost my train of thought. So if you have this family or individuals who are being housed here, what are they doing in return for housing? Like, are they, like someone had mentioned, Sholo, they work to be able to stay there. So are we just gonna have these random people on the street doing whatever, not working, not being employed, not giving back to the community that's trying to help take care of them? What are these 35 units that are gonna be occupied going to be doing during the day? Like, they're not under like lock and key and house arrest.
No, and we provide services. We try to connect them to services. We try to get them enrolled into healthcare services. We provide vocational services to help educate them. So I could tell you many success stories of individuals that have gone through our programs, been educated through vocational programs, and are currently successful in working. So, and you know, when I think of homeless, I also think of individuals that are living with family members, a burden on that family that could potentially move into their own place and try to get back on their feet.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So you throw a whole genre of people under this homeless shelter, not a homeless shelter, a facility to help people get on their feet, which also include the individuals who suffer from mental health. Is there a little bit more clarity of the people who we are going to be housing or could potentially be housing?
Yeah, and maybe the confusion is Change Point is a healthcare organization. We provide behavioral health services. We also provide primary care services. And the fact that we as an organization are in venturing in this project, there's confusion there, but you do not have to be in behavioral health services. You do not have to be a mental health patient to be accepted into this program, if that makes sense. That is not a stipulation, and an individual, a family could live there and not need any behavioral health, mental health services.
I had called actually last night to ask how many rooms that Howard Johnson actually has, and it's 44 rooms. How are you going to accommodate a specific family, whether it's 4, 3, 6, however, into 35 rooms?
So the grant allows for the purchase of it as well as renovations to include 2-bedroom apartments, larger apartments for families. So it would be reduced from say 41 down to 33 or something like that, because then we would be able to have 2-bedroom apartments for families.
And the employment that will be provided, is it only for behavioral health technicians, professionals, and paraprofessionals?
No, I mean, we employ all kinds of different, we have doctors, we have nurse practitioners, we have behavioral health professionals, therapists, we have case managers. So as we develop this project and the needs of the community, we could add staff as needed.
So the staff is actually not going to be residing in Holbrook necessarily, they're gonna be residing in other towns, just working?
Well, our goal is to staff and hire people from Holbrook. Our Holbrook office, I think all of them live and reside here in Holbrook that work.
Which staff?
And
like the
Change point
doctors,
here.
the psychiatrists, the office workers?
the behavioral health professionals, behavioral health technicians, the behavioral health paraprofessionals. So, yeah, the doctors that work there live in other communities.
I see. Thank you.
Member Black.
I see the same concerns that Robin brought up. I mean, all the people that are bred alive, they're not from Holbrook. They're from somewhere else that just happened to get stranded or get transported here. Now they're bred alive. All the people that are going to be at your place will not be Holbrook residents. They'll be coming from somewhere else to live here. And the problems I see is the same thing that Bread and Life is going through right now. If they don't get in at a certain time, or if they get caught doing something, drugs, drinking, whatever, now they're kicked back out on the street. And you're saying the same thing will apply there. If they don't obey the rules, they're out of there. So we're gonna have more homeless back out on our streets that wasn't here to start with. That's a concern that I see. I mean,
Sure.
I
yeah.
don't see how you're gonna stay away from that.
Yeah, no, I understand your concern, and some of the things that, I've been doing some research, and there are, if this community isn't good, we can connect them to Flagstaff and their facility that they're opening there. So, our goal isn't to just push people back onto the street. If they are non-compliant, we can facilitate and help them get to a community that maybe they could do better in. So.
I have a
Member Pacheco.
So, in regards to the transport, and you had stated that you will have your own transport to take them wherever they needed to go.
Mhm.
So, when it comes to medical, just like the EMS had stated, who's gonna foot that bill when somebody needs to be transported medically? Which leaves, like she said, we only have 2 EMS here. And God forbid if anything ever happened to me and I had to be transported to Winslow, drive me, because you're pushing your luck hoping that someone's not being transported for a broken finger.
Yeah, and I would love to meet with EMS to resolve some of the calls that are, I guess we feel like they're not needed. All of our clients in those facilities have health care, and I'm assuming you would get paid for all of those services. Our goal with this project would be first to get them enrolled into healthcare services, so that any transport, any services that is needed, there would be a payer source for that. So we wouldn't be around as an organization if we didn't have a payer source. So it's in our best interest as well to get these individuals connected to services, engaged in services, because then they become successful and productive citizens of the community. We do over 500,000 miles a year in transports throughout Navajo County. I have a fleet of like 50+ vehicles where we're transporting clients to and from doctor's appointments, clinics. We even transport down to the valley. So if it's non-emergent, as much as we can, we will do that transport. If there's, heart problems, if there's blood, we'll call the experts.
I have to think of how to word my next question.
Right, in the meantime, it's been brought up a few times, so if they are evicted, do you have a plan of where they go?
Yes, our plan is to find a connection to other facilities that will be more successful for them.
How many people do you provide services here in Holbrook? Like how many of our?
So we have at any given time about 450 enrolled members receiving services, and that over the course of a year, we open and close about double that. So I would say close to 850 to 900 patients we serve a year here in the Holbrook area.
And that's just here in Holbrook?
That's just here in Holbrook, yes. Winslow's about the same size, Snowflake's about double that, and Sholo's even,
So,
Actually, Member Pacheco had her hand ready, or did
Sorry,
you,
I'm
were you
not
not
done
done
yet.
yet? Sorry.
And what is your retention of those patients, like with your counseling services?
So in behavioral health, our goal, much like healthcare on the primary care side, our goal is to identify a problem, treat it for a number of months, and discharge them so they can move on with their life. Now there are chronic mental illness, what we call seriously mentally ill, which I equate that to individuals with diabetes, that they're going to be dealing with diabetes the rest of their life. And that's what we call the SMIs, and they could be enrolled in providing services for the rest of their lives. But for the most part, many of our clients are enrolled for 6 months and then discharged, and they go on their way.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Member Pacheco.
So 450 people that are receiving services from Change Point in just Holbrook alone, which can double being open and closed.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they now? Where are they being housed?
They live in their homes. They have their family members. They work at the school. They're residents. They have
No,
jobs.
So they're not homeless people that are needing a place to stay.
I mean, most of them probably are not, that is correct, yeah.
And you.
I mean, there are, we have housing projects, hey, that's not a right one, we have residential housing here, 20 units where individuals that need higher need of care come in and they stay there for a number of months, and then they are discharged back to their home, their family.
Okay, so I'm kind of getting two different, I feel like I'm getting conflicting answers between like a place to house homeless and also a place for people who are receiving services from Change Point. Also, county attorneys, something was mentioned about people who are released from drug court. So you have a whole group of people that all have to follow the same restrictions, and then say, like you had mentioned, they receive the help that they need, and then they are discharged. Discharged where? Back onto the street? Back to somewhere else?
Back to somewhere else, yeah. Obviously, when they're discharged, we try to find a safe place, or they have a safe place to move to. And then I think it was Dawn that mentioned that would be an option as a potential admission to the facility. You know, think of it as low-income housing is really what we're looking at, in my opinion, with the target of homeless individuals. But any low-income family could qualify and live there. So even our facilities, our other residential facilities, and I think in the county now we're at maybe 30, 40 beds, we have them fill out a financial application and they still pay a discounted rate for their rent. And unfortunately, I think what we're gonna see in the next 5 years is many families and seniors, because of fixed income, are gonna be faced with a hard decision of, I can't pay my rent, where am I gonna live? And this would be an option for them. So you know, it's unfortunate when you think of homelessness, you think of, you know, the vagrants, the substance abuse, the mental illness, which there are, but this is an option also for individuals that are just having hard times. And as far as coding too, I know that there was some code violations in other facilities. We would ensure that all the codes were met before we even opened our doors. So that would be no concern.
Member Dixon, did you have another question?
Arsenio covered the one of the questions I had, but going back to something that you said, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly about something happening in August of '24, that something would change?
So in August of '24, we would fulfill our responsibility of that grant, at which time we could technically do anything we want to it. We can convert it strictly to apartments. And basically, that fulfills the grant obligation. And after that, we could do whatever we want with it. And I think even in planning and zoning, I offered to say, I would love to even, what are some housing needs with the city that we could guarantee certain beds for specific needs of the community in the city.
All right, yes, member.
For example, school teachers or policemen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, yeah.
Just one quick question, just back to, so you're talking about I'm not saying 40 families, but 40 places open for.
Probably closer to 33, because we want to convert some of them to 2-bedroom apartments.
Okay.
So we can house families.
You're talking families and everything else.
Yes.
Again, one of the problems I see, what do you have, you're gonna house these families, and then what do you have for them to do during the day? I mean, that's the problem I see at Bread of Life. When they open up in the morning, they flood the top of the hill. I mean, because they can't stay there, so they go somewhere else.
Sure. Well, part of our goal is to connect them to services and connect them to jobs. I mean, so, you know, our goal is to get them engaged in services and look for a job so they can be a productive city.
Have you done a workforce study to see if we even have that many jobs available in Holbrook?
I have several jobs that I would love to hire myself. I don't know. Good question.
All right, Do you have
Is this a temporary, like, facility for somebody who's gonna be there, or if you're looking at, like, I'm just trying to think of like think of it like a family of four, like, you know, they lose their house, whatever, they lose their job, they need somewhere to go, and for some odd reason they end up in Holbrook. So you have two kids that are school age, you have, you know, a mom and a dad, and if they don't need change point services, I mean, they don't need those services, they just don't have a home, then what are you doing to promote them to be, like, get back on their feet? Like, who's ensuring that this is happening? Like, I know when you're on probation, you have to show a work log, like you're trying.
Yeah, a very good question. So I think part of the grant is we do an assessments like monthly with the family or with the individuals to see, you know, where they're at, what can we do to help them find jobs, get engaged in services so that eventually they can take care of themselves on their own.
And let's say I don't want to get a job and I don't want to pay rent and I enjoy having this facility take care of me. Where's the repercussion in that? Like, hey, I mean, what's the other end of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So often we find other placements for them. We you know, continue to encourage them to get engaged in services, but ultimately, yeah, it's very difficult to force them to.
You had mentioned that in Sholo they are building a 20-unit facility for this specific situation. Why can that not be done here in a different area of town and not necessarily, I mean, because up there at Howard Johnson, kind of far from everything else.
Sure.
I mean, that's a developing area, which, I mean, I can understand where the residents around or the property owners see that as a negative. Is that not an option to have this facility in a different area?
Yeah, the grants aren't specifically the same. The grant that we have to build the apartments up there is a little bit different. This is money that's earmarked for a quick turnaround, I guess is the way to put it. They need to get it spent pretty quickly.
And so as long as you fulfill your grant requirements at that 2024 mark, whose decision makes whatever's gonna be implemented at that point?
Well, and this is where I've offered a seat at the table with the city to, what can we do to provide additional needs that are gaps in service, gaps in housing for Holbrook.
So it's not gonna be like I fulfilled my grant requirements and I'm gonna pull out and go and we have another empty building?
We're here to stay. I mean, we've been around since 1966. Our primary care service and our behavioral service is here to stay. Housing isn't one of our main things, but you know, the Department of Housing came to us because we do have some housing, and you know, our goal is to find out what the needs are in the community and do our best to help serve. So our mission as an organization is to empower individuals and promote the quality of care and quality of life of individuals. And if we're meeting that mission as an organization, we're doing our job. So we're a nonprofit. Any profits we make as an organization, we're reinvesting back in the community.
So say somebody was released from drug court and they have to take, you know, UAs all the time to abide by probation. So now you have probationers in the same area that have to give UAs and whatnot. So is this going to help benefit the law enforcement and probation, court services, or is this going to be taken care of by change point employees in different areas?
Yeah, we wouldn't fulfill any responsibility of the courts or law enforcement. We would provide the housing there, if that makes sense.
So Mr. Newland had mentioned about the county attorney's office and the courts had 100% fully supported this. I don't know if I see anybody in the audience that can speak on behalf of the county attorney's office or the superior courts.
Yeah, Brad Carlisle was here at the planning and zoning and was in support of it. Sheriff Klaus I talked to, he was in support of it. So
I would actually like to turn a minute over to our chairman, Mike Sample. He's our planning and zoning one. Can you let us know? Because I know there was also, I know somebody mentioned speaking on behalf of the chief of police, which I don't believe is correct either. I know speaking to the chief before, they're like, yes, they may have met some of the concerns about transport, but they still had multiple concerns of safety as well. Can you
So
shed
the
any light on
representative
these?
actually wasn't from the Superior Court, it was from the county attorney's office, and then.
And was he there acting on behalf of the county or as
He
an
was here
individual?
on behalf of,
Okay.
acting as the county attorney, and then Ms. Dawn Wilson was here, I think she's part of the victims advocacy.
I don't know her
Department.
official title.
But it wasn't related to the Superior Court, it was to their offices. And then I got a response from Chief Christensen. I remember at the meeting, he did say that some of the stuff that they presented answered a lot of questions that he had, but he said, all I said is that if they did comply with all the things that they said they were going to do, like having 24-hour staff on site, then we would deal with it if it was approved. But that was his response to that. And he goes, that's what I said at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. But as far as the Superior Court, it was just Brad Carline representing the county, his position as county attorney, and then Ms. Wilson as her position, I think, in victim advocacy. Or I'm not sure exactly what department she's in.
Mike, you just read from Nathan's, a message that he sent to you?
Yes.
Whatever conversation that, since you kind of read that into the record, and this is a meeting.
Right, I
deal
can try to get it to you.
Yeah, we need to get a copy of that.
Yes, sir.
At the earliest convenience. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I do have one other major concern on this. The actual permit, the appeal was for a conditional use permit for a residential care facility. And it's my understanding that it doesn't fit the bill of a residential care facility, even by change point standards, that it is more like the residential housing, things like that. So my concern is, if it doesn't fit under a conditional use permit, it actually should have been a permit for a zoning change, similar to what we had last week. With that, if that is the case, they would actually have to go back to the planning and zoning and ask for a zoning request. Manager Soltis, am I on the right path there, or shall I ask Chairman
That's correct.
Sample that?
You're correct.
So our biggest concern is the original request from Change Point was for a residential care facility, and it might have been some misunderstanding on what it really was. There needed to be some clarification. However, that residential care facilities, as we had spoke about in one of our ordinances about a month prior, was specifically a conditional use permit approval through the council. This, on the other hand, if it is homeless housing and transitional housing, that really would be a zoning request, and that's a completely different process, and would have to go back to Planning and Zoning Commission for that approval. So let's keep that in mind as well, that this doesn't fit under the umbrella of a conditional use permit anymore. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns before we take a motion on
Can we
this?
have a break to review everything and discuss that, or do we have to take a vote to either go forward or not?
Our
Can't discuss
discussion
it,
is
right.
now.
Yeah, I
so
mean, but
you're on.
so we, individually can,
Process everything.
yeah, that's kind of a lot.
So, Mayor, point of order, so the motion would be made and then you have opportunity for discussion as traditional.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go ahead and take a motion.
Yeah.
Open.
So, I make a motion to affirm Planning and Zoning's denial of the conditional use permit.
Do I have a second to,
Wait.
so,
Affirm the denial.
So in
Affirm the
other
denial.
words-
Okay,
in other words,
That's why we are here.
yeah,
okay.
so in other words, we support the Planning and Zoning's recommendation of denial.
Yeah, I second that.
We have a second. With that, we will have a discussion. We can debrief. Any other questions or concerns?
You know what, Mayor, I just assumed if we could, table this for now and give us some time to think. There's a lot of information being thrown out here, and I mean, personally, I'd like to go home, go through everything, and do this at a different time. Just table it and let us think about it, and think about the questions that we are gonna ask, and think about.
So at this point, we'll have to, we do have a motion on the table, so we'll have to finish a vote there, and then depending on that vote, we can potentially make another motion,
Yeah, let's
depending
deal
on the
with this
results.
tonight.
Excuse me?
I said, let's deal with this tonight.
So, is there any other concerns, questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's go to a vote. I believe an appropriate vote would be roll call.
Yes, that's right. So this is a little confusing.
Yes. So as a reminder, the motion on the table is in support of the denial from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So an aye vote would be basically denying the permit.
And I vote would be no.
An aye vote is no, correct?
Okay.
Okay. So, Mayor Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Black,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Nielsen,
Aye.
Councilmember Pack,
Aye.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Aye.
All right, so the ayes have it, so it is, the appeal has been denied. My recommendation would be, if there was a concern, to take it back to planning and zoning, clarify, moving forward. At this point, I feel like that would be the best bet. I mean, that's similar to tabling it, but it's not tabling it just to postpone it, but it's an actual way for us to go back and make sure the paperwork is correct right from the start. So, with that, I believe
Motion to adjourn.
we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. So, all right, we will go ahead and take just a 8-minute recess. I'm sure Mr. Oaks needs a, and then we will go ahead and start the regular